Hello,
Hello, family.
hello, and welcome back to another episode of Hear Us Out.
I want to say thank you to all of those who have listened to our latest episodes. Thank you for hearing us out. Uh, we welcome all comments,
hmm
concerns, and we're glad that you're here again.
Yes, very much so.
Yes.
And
hmm
so, in this episode, we've decided to talk about something that I think helps to elucidate some of the points that we've been trying to make throughout
hmm
our past episodes. Um, because I think one of the major points that we're trying to hit on is
hmm
that if we want to go about solving our issues,
Right.
then
hmm
we have to one be able to accurately define what they are,
Right.
and then two do something that actually addresses the issues and doesn't feed back
Right.
into this,
Right.
creating more of itself.
Correct.
You
Correct.
know, but and we pretty much mean like we can't fix this the way we've been trying to,
Correct.
and it's going to take something else.
Right. And the concept that we have constantly mentioned, I think, in all of our episodes so
hmm
far, has been, shift in perspective, a
Yeah,
shift in thinking, right? And so,
we would like to talk about those things that are emblematic of that to us, that has helped us
us,
to
right,
shift our perspective
right,
because this didn't happen overnight for us as well.
correct,
We got here because because of the books and
mm-hmm,
because of the learning and
right,
the teaching and the lessons that have pushed us out of our comfort zones
correct,
and have forced us to confront some things that have help to help to shine a light
mm-hmm,
on those things that we were taking for granted for
mm-hmm.
ourselves.
And I do understand that when I say shift in perspective, right? Yes, books has definitely helped, and I also know that there may be an experience, something that
Yeah,
actually happens that can cause a shift in perspective as well, because when we say shift in perspective and we say books or whatever, it sounds simple, but we understand that
yeah.
that's not
There's no
the
one
case.
way
Right.
that it is supposed to
Right.
go.
Mm-hmm.
However, those moments when you
Mm-hmm.
are confronted with
Right.
them, whether it is coming from reading something or hearing something or
Right.
having something happen to you.
Correct.
You know, there's no one way that this is supposed to go.
Right.
No one path that you're supposed to be on.
Correct.
But
And that's been one of the issues, is that a lot of times we think that it has to take a particular path, it has to go a certain way, and as you can tell, we have been taking that particular path and it still hasn't really gotten the results that we think that we should have gotten from taking that particular path. So, these are some real life, experiences and things that we're going to discuss. That's how it's been so far, but
mhm,
in regards
yeah,
to, the
because
experiences in reading and
it,
how we have
we
come
would
to where
like
we are.
just like to talk about the things that helped us to
Mm-hmm.
grow,
Right.
the things that, at least from in my case, that helped for me to let go of
Yeah.
some of my preconceived notions of what
Mm-hmm.
this is supposed to be and how it's supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it it was always books. I've lived
Right.
quite
Yeah.
something of a sheltered lifestyle. I stay inside all day pretty much, and I just stick to myself. So the things that really push me out
Mm-hmm.
of my comfort zone is when I have to engage with the literature
Right.
that challenges me.
Mm-hmm.
To have to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
For you, like you
Yeah, I mean, at your age and your sister's age, I was already married, two children, those
yeah,
type of things. So it's a different,
yeah, it's a whole different
it's
thing.
a whole different type of I guess you could say baptism
hmm
for me. And so I thought that it would be good for us to
Yeah,
sort of
and we've
to
kind
share
of
that out.
called this our personal revolutions.
Right, right.
Those things, those moments in our lives that helped us,
Mm-hmm.
to shift our perspective.
Right,
You
right.
know, so let me start off by asking you,
Mm-hmm.
what are the moments, the things that are most, impactful for you that help to really push you in this direction?
Okay, well, one of the first things that happened that I can clearly remember, and there were others too, but I think this one was the big one.
Mm.
Is I was in class.
Yeah.
I was in it was a U.S. history class, I think, and
Like you in high school?
yeah, I was in high school at the time,
High school.
and so our assignment we had to outline the chapter and complete the questions or whatever the case may be at the end of the chapter or whatever, and so we're all in class and everyone is just flipping pages, right? You read the question and then you go back to find the answer, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm reading, I'm reading, and I have this distressed, I guess, look on my face, and one of my classmates is like, man, they call me by my middle name, Weechu, what's wrong, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, why is it in this book, that black people only amount to slaves and criminals? I remember, saying that. And so at the time, the teacher was out. I think the teacher went to a restaurant, whatever the case may be. And so my classmate was like, well, you know what? When the teacher come back, ask the teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
No problem. So the teacher comes back, and so everybody's still doing their work, the bells ring, everyone is turning in their work. So I remember, turning in my work, and I asked, why is it, that we only amount to slaves and criminals in this book? And the most profound response that he gave me, quote, I don't know. From that, I said, you know what? I got it from here. I got it from here. So that was the experience thing that sort of catapulted me into, the direction.
Just this particular,
that particular thing, because I knew something was wrong there. And so from that point on, I had always been questioning, like, if this is what it is now, right? Our relationship in this country has been of abuse and just all around
pain.
Good, right? So if it's like this now, that means at one time it wasn't like this. I don't know why. That's just what I thought. Like, if it's like this now, at one time it wasn't like this.
Yeah. You know how I feel about that.
Well, I know. Right.
Yeah.
So, but I'm talking about me back when I'm like 16 or whatever years old, 16, 17, whatever, however old I was. Okay, so that was the whole journey. I'm just trying, like, white people and black people, we don't get along and all this stuff. So it had to be a point where, something must have happened.
It wasn't this.
Yeah, it wasn't, right. It wasn't this cantankerous relationship. Something must have happened. Yeah. Something had to happen. What was it like before? And so I had always just been, that's always been on my mind. And so, just this, it's like a year before I'm about to graduate from college, from undergrad.
Yeah.
And I take this class. And it's the ancient novel. That's the name of the class, right? And at the time when I took the class, I'm just thinking, these are going to be some great, stories that I'm going to read, and I can incorporate that into my class when I become a teacher, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know that would be the class where, it changed my perspective and my thinking so much. I'm like, if I had an extra year at school, I would have swapped majors because I only had like a year or a semester left in school. And the book that just opened my eyes, like, see, I knew I was right. I knew it. And the name of the book is Anthiopica by Heliodorus, and it may be loosely translated as an Ethiopian story. It may
Hmm.
come out under a different title, whatever the case may be. But that was the book, and
Can you tell me what the book was about?
yes, the book is actually about a young lady. Her name is Carclaire, if I
Mm-hmm.
remember her name correctly, where she is on a journey to reclaim her identity that was taken away from her.
Hmm.
Okay, because she's an albino,
Hmm.
she's white.
Yeah.
Okay, and she's from Ethiopia, but she was left exposed,
Hmm.
and a Greek family claimed her.
Hmm.
And once she found out who she was, and because who she was,
Hmm.
she was on this journey now to reclaim her identity, her to reclaim her identity,
Hmm.
and that entire story, how it unfolded, you know, the way that Heliodorus, discussed, relationships with people.
Hmm.
It was such a fantastic and dynamic story. The way that the details and the descriptions of the characters and the social problems, I guess you could say, like all of these things, and it wasn't this racial story.
Yeah.
It was
Racism's kind of a
it come yeah
a 20th century problem.
uh yeah
At least
yeah
in this form.
yes,
Yeah.
in this format, right?
There's always been prejudice, but
Yes. And so, but even in the story,
Hmm.
you know like the character Hadaspes and Arodantes, right?
Hmm.
And how they're physically described. One of the things that really, one of the things that really stuck out to me was how they described the Ethiopians and the Egyptians, right?
Hmm.
And it would say that they're the that the Egyptians are, how did he say? He said that they're not as dark as the Indians,
Hmm.
but they're as black as the Ethiopians. It's something like that. Like he was putting everything out there to let you know that these are all of these different people
Hmm.
with all of these different dynamic thinkings and things, and how they related. And it was just a fantastic story just to see how people
Hmm.
were interacting and coming into themselves, and how it is that they were defining themselves and their identity. And I found that to be refreshing.
Hmm.
And I was not expecting anything like that from a novel that was written, I don't know, 6 AD or 600 AD. I mean, it's a really, really old novel. And then to get to the end, because it was, I'm not going to
Hmm.
go through all of the details to
Well, you
read.
could if you want to.
No,
All right.
no, because you need to read
All right.
it. And so at the end, with all of the ancient novels that were written, stories or whatever the case may be, they put their seal. The writer puts his seal, so that it's not uh stolen or
Hmm.
plagiarized, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. And the way that he described himself, because as I'm reading the story, I'm like, I'm feeling this,
Hmm.
right? I'm like, who is so? Here it is, Heliodorus, and he says, he described himself. He says, descendant of the sun. And I could have just hit the floor. I could have hit the floor, right?
Hmm.
And the professor at the time, I remember when, like, I guess she just saw it in my face.
Yeah.
And she pointed out that, in classical studies, folk, really believe that Heliodorus was probably a priest and a cultist priest of
Yeah.
the sun, those type of things or whatever. And I'm like, no way,
Hmm.
no way. And well, that was the novel that's like, I know that there was a time when we did not relate to each other in terms of race
Hmm.
and racism, that did not, you know,
That wasn't as big of a factor.
correct, that you were dealing with, people. And that's
Hmm.
not to say that you didn't have problems, obviously, because in
Yeah.
the book you talk about different problems. Not to say that you didn't have problems, not to say that there weren't any angst, and that it was just all peaceful. No, that's not it.
Yeah.
And to read something like this, I'm like, it catapulted me, into, this the area of classical studies. That's how I ended up,
Yeah.
going into classical studies. And that's when, I'm writing about, race in the Roman Empire,
Mm-hmm.
slavery in the Roman Empire. And then I'm finding a lot of African scholars
Mm-hmm.
who wrote about this is like who wrote about antiquity.
Mm-hmm.
And when they wrote about antiquity, they weren't writing it from racism. You understand
Mm-hmm.
me? They were just putting out what the history of these people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that these people were black, but that they were people nonetheless, and
Mm-hmm.
they lived their lives, had their own social system, things like that. It blew me away. So that was
So
that.
what exactly changed for you?
It was more of a confirmation,
Mm-hmm.
you know, than anything else, because I just felt like, if this is what it is now, then at one time it wasn't this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though, like, I know how race and racism has impacted my life,
Yeah.
my parents,
Mm-hmm.
my grandparents, my great grandparents. You understand me? And so I'm like, and that's a long time. Like, my grandparents were born in the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
You understand me? So, you know, that extended time, that's for me, it's like that's a long time to deal with something.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think about those who've had to deal with it, first, but I'm like, it at some point it wasn't this. It like something had to occur, something had to happen
Mm-hmm.
for this kind of dynamic to occur now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just always felt like there's something out there that's going to reveal itself. I wasn't looking for that in this,
Mm-hmm.
or even in this class. Like I said, when I took the class, I was, some great books, and it helped me with my English because it's, Greek novels and Roman novels, things of that nature. But when I read this, I'm like, see, I felt as if, I wasn't wrong, but I wasn't, you know, really, really sure. And then
Mm-hmm.
to read something like, Heliodorus's novel, it just opened my mind to people, you know, and to see them act not so much as if race is irrelevant,
Yeah.
but just to act in themselves, just to be,
That it wasn't the defining fact.
right. Now for Caraclea, who was coming back,
Yeah.
to reclaim her identity, to reclaim her position,
Mm-hmm.
because her mother's a queen, her daughter is, and her father's a king.
Mm-hmm.
Warrior King, you did not want it with Hadas's face. That's his name. She's not. She wasn't Greek.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of even hits on. My favorite story in the Bible is the thing with Moses. That's one of my favorite stories. Is that soon as he found out who he was. Well, soon as she found out, same thing with Moses. Soon as he even found out, right?
Yeah.
When both of them found out who they were, they walked in that path. Moses didn't want nothing from the Egyptians. He just wanted, to get back home. It's the same thing with, with Caraclea. She wants, she wants to be able to reclaim who she is. And I didn't see that reclamation as a racial thing. It's just that for her,
Mm-hmm.
These are my parents, and
Well.
they left her exposed because she's just white child. Not her parents were like super duper dark.
Mm-hmm.
She's in a bottom.
Yeah.
And so that whole journey for her and the people who she was with, like Kinemon and others. I mean, it was such a fantastic, moving story,
Mm-hmm.
and I just found it fascinating how people just they
It gave you a greater historical context.
yeah.
That it wasn't that the problems that we are having now have a legacy, they
Yes.
have a lineage,
Mm-hmm.
but the form that it's taken,
Taken, right.
that is, it hasn't always been
Been,
white, black,
right.
this
Mm-hmm.
white supremacy, black people,
Right.
stuff like that. It
Right.
was, it gave you a great historical understanding of the problems
Yes.
that we are facing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I found it, for me, it was mind blowing because I had
Mhm.
never read anything remote. I had never read anything like that before, and
Yeah.
I'm just blown away. And so that was the thing that really
Mm-hmm.
honed in for me to really get into the classical,
Mm-hmm.
history. Not that I didn't do it before,
Yeah.
because it was just something about just honing in, going further
Yeah.
back, and that is the thing that really catapulted me
Yeah.
to that, and
Well,
I found it fascinating. It's an
yeah.
excellent novel,
And
excellent
that,
novel.
like I said, for me,
Mm-hmm.
like it's always been books.
Right.
For you, it was a moment, and the
Mm-hmm.
book. I
Right.
would say the moment for me
Mm-hmm.
was when I was at Jesuit,
Okay.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I remember when you had told me that one of the first slave ships' name was Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
right? I remember I was having something of a like the Bible and stuff like that, like
Mm-hmm.
Christianity,
Right.
Catholicism has never really set right with me.
Right.
And I was going to a Catholic school,
Right. Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And they always take like to be humble and to be all this stuff,
Right.
and I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
But but the thing is that if all the bad things are, us failing to live up to
Right.
whatever and the devil or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and all the good things about the world is, divine intervention,
Right.
Jesus stuff, then
Right.
at what point do we as human beings get
Right.
to be anything? If
Right.
it's all just devil and
Right.
God, and we
Right.
just, then we don't get to be anything.
Right. Correct.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, and they kept telling you to be humble and stuff,
Right.
but I'm like, I want to be something. I
Right.
want to,
Right.
So, and I remember having such like this crisis
Mm-hmm.
over and talking with you about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you told me about how some like the earliest slave ship was named after Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and that the religion itself has a history of
Right.
oppression
Right.
and dogma.
Right. And keep in mind, I'm Catholic, by the way.
Yeah.
Baptized, from New Orleans. So,
Yeah.
Being Catholic and being Baptist, that's.
But yeah, I remember, when you said that to me, and then I said, I said this. I remember this conversation, just like you remember.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I bet that they don't even know about this,
Mm-hmm.
that they don't even know about the history of this. And you
Right.
said, no,
Mm-hmm.
they know.
They know. That's right.
They have to know.
Mm-hmm.
Evil, someone has to know.
That's right.
They always know.
Right. In order to tell a lie, you must
know the truth.
That's right.
They know.
Yeah, they know.
They're just lying to you.
That's it. That's what I told you.
And your problem here is that you have a sense
Mm-hmm.
that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's where your problem is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're supposed to be feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that to me, and I remember, what I said back. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they lying?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that they hate us
Right.
so much? Why? And I remember being like, well, it's because you're black.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you're black.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, even at that young age,
Mm-hmm.
I had to be like 13, 12, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Being dissatisfied with that
answer. Right.
That wasn't good enough
Right.
for me.
Right.
And I remember, feeling like, no, it's got to be something else. And I remember being like that with you.
Right.
You were like,
No.
like, no,
That's not what it
is. But you never told me that it had it never you told it was more of a go down this path.
Yeah.
If it's not enough for you,
go down this
and try
path.
to find
Right.
what it is.
That's right.
But just know that
Mm-hmm.
it always comes down
That's right.
to you're black.
Right.
And they're white, and that's how it ends up. So I'm like, so I remember
because I think we were sitting in the truck.
Yeah,
I
we
think
were
we were sitting in the
sitting
truck.
in the
So
truck, talking,
yeah,
in the
driving.
truck. Yeah. So I remember that.
Uh-huh.
and that's the moment when I got this dissatisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like any, like I didn't like religion, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like history, I didn't like them.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
remember just being like, I hate these people,
All right.
I hate y'all,
Mm-hmm.
because this is no excuse
That's
for
right.
your behavior,
Right.
for what's happening.
That's right.
And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted so desperately for there to be some deeper
Mm-hmm.
intrinsic reason going on,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
I couldn't find it. There was,
Right.
you know,
Right.
I would say all of our stuff, and when I say our, I mean, like, when the way that, we as black people, we
Mm-hmm.
write about our position,
Mm-hmm.
it always comes back to, because they're white.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right. They're
yeah,
white. They're
they're white.
criminal justice.
They're the,
Right.
they're
Right.
the oppressors. We're
Right.
the oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get through this, then
Yeah. Yeah.
if anything, that's indisputable,
That's right. That's
right?
what Dilly Fuller said.
Yeah.
You get that concept down, you'll be okay.
But there was never, it was never good enough
Uh-huh.
for me,
Uh-huh.
and I hated white people.
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying when I
Right.
was young that they just need to be a virus that comes out and just kills all the white people. It needs to be some type of
Get it over.
genophage that comes and just wipe these people out. They are horrible and terrible. We'll be better off without them. I remember feeling that way,
Mm-hmm.
and but then
Mm-hmm.
we did our U.S. history section,
Mm-hmm.
world history part, when we were reading. We read a lot of black authors. We read the Constitution. We read
The Declaration of
Declaration of
right, all
Independence
the,
and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was during that time
Mm-hmm.
where we read Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yeah, because I did it in concert with our literature
Class.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a transcendentalist,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot remember the exact name of the thing.
Yeah, I have the book.
It's in one of
Yeah,
the
I have
books
the
that
book.
we were using.
Yeah.
And he was a transcendentalist and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff,
Right.
and that pretty much means that he felt that the natural world, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
the sublime,
Right.
was transcended, or that there was some type of spiritual resonance about it.
Yeah.
I could go on.
Yeah, but that's pretty.
The point
right.
is that we read this thing. It was a short,
short stories, some
a short little.
It was a collection of little short stories that were written.
And I remember being so taken back because it was some of the most beautiful writings.
It's really good.
That I had ever read.
Yeah, it's my fault, people.
Yeah, and I remember being like, and that's when I had the moment of being like, I hate these people because they're not supposed to be capable of this.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. The way I've learned it, the way it's always been presented,
right?
At least from our perspective, is that they aren't capable of this type of perspective, of this type of understanding about our world and nature and stuff like that. And if they're incapable, they should not be able to produce something like this. Right? But they obviously have and are. So something's wrong here.
Right?
Somebody's wrong. And I'm like, well, but there's nobody else who can be wrong but me. Mm-hmm. Because I'm saying that this is impossible, and I'm looking at it, I'm reading it, and it is moving me.
Right. And my response, and I think I remember responding that, like, I know that they're capable of this, but that
it doesn't offset.
That's right.
Everything else.
That's right.
But for me, it's been like I remember reading that, and that's when I remember I've said this many times where the like history has condensed. I feel the world shrink as if the connections have been made and the complexities are just getting a little simpler. And that's when I saw it. And that's when I began to understand it. Like what I'm feeling right now.
Because the thing is that the reason why I had you to read Ralph Waldo Emerson was because, like, I knew that we were going to read Invisible Man.
He was read, and he was named
after and so
Ralph Waldo Ellison.
Right, and so I felt that connection was important because Ralph Ellison's father
named him after Ralph
Emerson, because that was his favorite author.
Yeah.
For the same reasons. Like, all of your life you're presented with a particular set of information, right? And here it is, Ralph Emerson. And he wasn't the only one that we read, but he was the one that was
big for me.
Right, the cinchpin is that they should not be capable of producing anything remotely close to this, knowing the kind of people that we have had to interact with,
As far as I was concerned, the type of people that we have made them out to be.
Yes, that's what you have come right. Right. And my, this is where
we have divergence on that, but still, because I saw the picture, I saw the white person who grew up hating black people.
Right.
And I'm like, and I'm asking that person, and I'm like, and I can't understand how that person hates me. But I was that person because I hated them. Now, like, they all need to be gone because they're evil and stuff like that. And now I understand the white person who's like, well, they all need to be gone because they're
black, right?
Black.
Right.
Right, because I'm like, yeah, they all need to be gone because they're white.
Right.
I get it now. In that I'm not making excuses for
it. Of course.
But I understand that the way that things have been presented to us has done, at least as far as I'm concerned, has done us a disservice.
Yes, it has.
Because it's not that simple. It's much more. It's much more
complex.
It's insidious.
It is insidious. Yeah, it's much more complex.
Because it's not.
And it's not as linear as we think it is.
Because it's not that it's not white people or that there is not a racial impetus here, but is that I can see the white kid, who's reading a whole bunch of white authors, trying to explain to him how because he feels something's wrong, right? Kind of explain, and their white authors are telling them that it's us,
right,
right, and it's the same thing that I'm feeling, right. That all about white authors, all about black authors are telling me that it's them, but it's not enough. It's not enough, and you hate it. You hate them because you're like, it's not enough. It's not enough, right? And then and like I read Emerson, that kid might end up reading Ellison, and starting to understand that it's not about us, or that the form that it's taking for us now, does not truly let us see like the legacy. Of our problems,
right?
That they have been here for a long time, and that it's a lot deeper,
right?
A lot deeper in us than white and black. And it blew me away.
Yes, it did. And I remember. I mean,
it blew me away because, like, for you said it was a confirmation.
Yes.
But like, for me, it was a direct challenge.
Right.
It was a destruction.
Right.
Everything that I had made up, the world to be, those people to be, everything I made them up to be was, and I forget who said this, but I think it was from a TV show or something. But it was like, you draw a line, and it said the problem with drawing lines in the sand is with the breath they go away.
Right.
And I had drew my line in the sand, and I could have sworn that it would stand the test of time, and it was gone. It was gone.
That's my fault, people. But but the thing is that when I decided to do this, right, with the homeschool, like I said, I knew that we were going to read particular, because I felt like I had to share that with you. That if I did not, share the complete, or not so much complete, the whole thing, that something would be absent. And that was the thing with me, is that things had been kept from me. And so I had been going a particular line, and I know what I know from that line.
Yeah.
And then when you're introduced to something like this, is like, boom, this.
I will admit that I felt let down by our authors, because I like nothing really showed that complexity until I guess like James Baldwin. James Baldwin really honed in on a lot of stuff for me. But I remember a lot of the stuff that we were reading, you know, and it made it out to be just this, like, it made it out to be so simple. Well,
yeah. Well,
it made not the solutions. It made the problems out to be simple. You know, the solutions were like grand gestures, and, you know, declarations of war and stuff like that. You know, but like I said, I remember reading like stuff like Francis Cross Welsing and stuff like that, and just being like, "This is not like this is not it. This is not it.
This is not the end, folks."
You know, and I'm like. I like you when you talk about, remember, because we talked about in the I think it was in our last episode about education and how when you're not exposing people to everything that there is out there, when they have to confront it, they're going to feel let down, and they're going to feel, listen, because that's what I was going through, you know, but it was intentional. It was it was an intentional change. Yes. This is what you thought it was. Boom. Okay,
boom. Right. Exactly.
Shift the game. You know. So, but I'm like. At that moment, I knew, number one, that I was wrong. And I was wrong. And that number two, I needed to be right. Because I was coasting so long on this particular, you know, philosophical thread. And it had I had built so much on it, right? And it was just gone. And so I needed something, as far as I was concerned, I needed something real. Like I said, because at that point, that was the delusion. I needed something tangible. I needed something real, something that would last, something that would be there. So I wouldn't just fall apart again. Right. And that is what led me to the Dune series, and that is what led me to everything else. Because the Dune series written by Frank Herbert.
Yes.
And it's a sci-fi series. It takes place thousands of untold years in the future. You know, but I don't see it as sci-fi. As far as I was, it's truer than the Bible. For me,
well, you know, he does have that. What they call
the Orange Catholic Bible. But like,
if somebody could find that out, find that book.
Yeah, but I remember when I read the very first book of the series. I read that. I loved the first book so much that I was scared to read the second book. I was like, it can't be this good. I read the first book like 3 times before I worked up the nerve to even get the second book in the series. But all of the books are fantastic.
Yes, they are.
You know, and they truly do just get better and better. But the first one, if Emerson tore down my world, right, then Herbert helped me to build it back up. Because it showed me, when I say personal revolution, these 6 books gave me my revolution. It showed me so much, you know, and like I said, you don't want to explain too much because go and read the books, and I don't want to explain, and I don't want to get into Dune because like if you don't really have a, you know, then I can just say things and it just won't make any sense. But there are these people in the Dune series known as the Freemen.
Oh yes, my favorite. Yeah.
And in the first book, there are these, you know, desert dwelling, you know, survivors. They're seen as, you know, savages, you know, wild men. You know, they live out in the wilds of the desert. You know, so nobody really lends them much credence. You know, they, you know, and when the more you learn about the Freemen, you learn about their legacy of oppression. That these people have been oppressed for like millennia, for millions of years, like from planet to planet to planet. These people they have always been the oppressed people, right? And that here on this planet, they have they have been waiting for their opportunity to take their revenge.
That's right. Right.
They've been waiting for their opportunity to get their justice. In the book, it's called the jihad.
Right.
This endless war that because you have hurt these people for so long that it has become an inevitability that this is going to have to happen. Then you have, Paul Atreides, later known as Paul Muad'Dib, the worm, the man, who out of a need to survive, he's trying to survive, and he finds himself among these people, and to ingratiate himself in their culture, he kind of builds himself up to be something of their prophet, right? But he begins to have a sense of what he might be unleashing. Yes. Of what of what's going to happen. And these things take up a momentum of their own. And he knows that there is really nothing he can do to stop it. Right. Because he didn't really cause it to begin with. This was this is a human hurricane that has been broiling inside of us for so long. And he knows that, he's become a prophet to these people, and he has lessened these people. They have lessened themselves in comparison to this man, because, like I've said before, he can say the things that other people can't say. Right. Or they don't feel that they can say it for themselves. Right. So they've glommed onto him. Right. He's the leader. Right. And he was just trying to survive, and then he gets caught up in this, and then there's a whole bunch of other things that's going on. But it was really their story arc, the Freeman story arc throughout the book, that gave me my revolution, that showed me that if we continue to do things this way, and even if it happens perfectly, and you get everything that you want, that you say that you're looking for, right? Like the Freemen, right? Who got everything plus more, right? of what they wanted. At the end, you will be hollow. You will be empty. You're going to get all the things you think you want, but you're never going to get what you needed. You're going to become something else, and you're going to be resentful of yourself, of your people, and of your place in history. You're going to be lost, right? And you're going to fade into obscurity. And it showed me that. And like in this book, they use this phrase that really, really had my attention, and that was race consciousness. Right. Right. The only other time I had ever heard race consciousness, that term is when, reading our literature. Right. About our particular position, and the kind of the generational trauma. That's kind of what I call it. Right. Of this impetus, this history, this legacy that you were born with. Right. This pain, you have to be cognizant of it because you have to be. Yes. Right. But in the book, it was more pertaining to humanity as a whole. But when he talks about race consciousness and feeling like he doesn't have a choice in the matter, that these things are just going to happen, and that they were going to happen regardless, but now they are happening around him, and he's being pushed along this wave, and that there's nothing that he can do. That's right. There's nothing. Once a people have been galvanized like that, and they feel the momentum, they know that shift, that change, whatever is coming, they feel it in the air. There is nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can do to stop that. The only thing you can do is try to stop it before it begins, and that's you and I have been, desperately trying to do, but I saw Black people in the Freeman. I saw our pain, and I saw my personal struggle with this in Paul Muad'Dib, you know, and seeing how everything turns out for him in that first book, and this is his entire arc in all of the books, really showed me that our culture, like we talked about before, our culture, our history, who we say we are, we will lose it one way or the other. If you get everything that you're looking for, if you put an end to your struggle, right? If we as Black people, we put an end to our struggle, then we will no longer be Black people. Right. At least not how we are used to seeing ourselves. Right? Because the people we are the people who struggle.
Yes.
That's who we are. That is our cultural impetus, struggling. And if you lose that, much like the Freemen, and how they lose their desert by their own hand.
Yes,
they lost that desert.
That's right.
And they knew that at that point they could no longer be Freemen.
That's right.
And without our struggle, without our desert, we can't be who we are. But the thing is, it's going to go away one way or the other, but that's the thing. We want to be Black people.
Right.
Right? We want to be Black people, and we want to end our struggle. Not knowing that Black people only exist in the struggle. They exist as a consequence of the struggle. You get rid of the struggle,
that's right.
You get rid of Black people.
Right. That is true.
Right? And what we end up becoming outside of this might not be a people that you like. We might become a people that you despise. And it's like, it's going to go away one way or the other. But the thing is, we think that we can retain some sense of who we are, some sense of identity.
Right.
And also get rid of the struggle.
And that's
not how this goes.
Right.
You can't do it. Not like that. You're going to lose it. You're going to lose it because who you are is someone equipped to struggle. When that struggle's gone, that cultural identity is gone as well. But nobody's ready for that.
Right.
Everybody thinks, like I said many times before, that you can have your cake and eat it too.
Right.
We want to be Black people. We want to be the white people.
Right.
We want to do that, not knowing that is a requiem knell for all of this, for you and for them. You won't be Black people anymore. They won't be white people anymore. The world will no longer be this. It's going to be something else. And if you're not ready for that, then you have doomed yourself to be relegated, to fade into history, to be lost, and like irrevocably so.
Right.
Because
reduced to a paragraph or whatever.
Reduced to a paragraph, whatever. You have lost your culture, and you have not given us the space internally to build something else. Right. So all you are is lost. All you are is a monument to what you were.
Right.
Right. It's kind of like us looking back on ancient Egypt, and the greatness, quote unquote, of our past, and thinking that it means something today. Who they were is who they were, and they're gone.
Right.
They're gone. And now you're looking back. So when you're out of this, what do you think you're going to do?
Right. You're
going to be looking back.
Right.
And you're going to look back and you're going to miss everything that is happening right now in your history, in your time. You're going to miss it all.
Right. For you to make your way.
You're looking back that you can't look forward. And it's like, so what do you do then? What do you do then?
Right.
If Black people can't get rid of their struggle, because to do so means pretty much is committing cultural suicide. Right? What are we supposed to do? Are we doomed to struggle? No, you're not. You have to be prepared to lose everything. You have to be prepared for an Emerson to come along and to just
wipe it away.
Thanos snap away everything that you have built up.
Right.
And you have to be prepared at that moment. You have to be ready for it and to
build
something else.
Right.
And that's what all of this has been about.
Right.
Preparing us to be a people that can survive without a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like a culture of culturelessness. A people who can survive anywhere and anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a people who don't, we don't need a pyramid.
Right.
We don't need a skyscraper.
Right.
We don't need those things.
Mm-hmm.
All we need is us right here.
Right.
And that impetus on the inside to be who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's who we are, period. Right. Anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But that's not what we're doing. That's not what any people are doing.
Right.
You know? We have locked ourselves into this idea that we can do it this way. We can do it this way. And I'm not saying that you can't.
Right.
But you don't know what's at stake.
Right.
No black people today are truly prepared to not be black people.
Correct.
To be something else.
Right.
No people are really prepared to be something else.
Right.
You know? But that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And really that's what it's going to have to, that's what's going to take.
Right.
To be something else. And what, like we say, that something else has to be the people we said we always were.
That's right. We have to become the people who we should have always been.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But for some people, they think that they can be them. They can be this. For a majority of us,
mm-hmm.
We think we can have our cake and eat it too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get lost in that, everything will pass you by. Everything will pass you by. You will become a closed loop.
Yeah. And you will die.
Stuck in this paradigm.
That's right.
Like so you will fade into the ultimate death.
Yes.
You will become a relic. That is it. And it's like, we don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see it. I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew that it wasn't, that I didn't want it to be this way. I didn't want it to be the jihad. Right. I didn't want it to be this giant war. We just kill everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That never sat right with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And when I read that book, those books,
mm-hmm.
it showed me that if we are going to do that,
mm-hmm.
then we better have a Paul Muad'Dib
mm-hmm.
and a Leto and we better be
we have to have all of them.
We need to have people who are going to stand by for thousands of years to make sure
mm-hmm.
that there is still some type of reason, some type of impetus to our existence. But this is real life.
Right.
And there is no Paul Muad'Dib.
That's correct.
There is no Duke Leto.
Mm-hmm.
There is no Andrade.
That's right.
There is no God Emperor Leto. Duke Leto.
Right. Yeah, the dad.
Yeah,
right.
we don't. Those people aren't real. They aren't here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just us,
right.
Which means that we ourselves, we have to tear down our preconceived notions of what this is going to have to be.
Mm-hmm.
We have to tear down all of this. We have to know that we won't have our cake and we won't be able to eat it too. We won't be able to do that. This is a closed loop.
Yeah.
That leaves you wanting. That's
mm-hmm.
all it does.
Mm-hmm.
And if you continue this way, that's all you will ever be.
Mm-hmm.
Is your want. Like I said, you give so much that all you become is what you sacrifice. You're not anything. You're a black hole.
Right.
All you are is what you've given.
Mm-hmm.
So who are you? Then nothing. Because you've given it all away.
Right.
You're just a mound of scars. A walking like a mummy. You're just an appendage. Just a bandage, a living bandage mm-hmm. that's meant to hold other things together, but that's all you are now, just a bandage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if we want to be a people, this is what's on the line here.
Mm-hmm.
Being a people, if we want to have a culture, if we want to truly be able to live, then we have to we have to understand that right now, we have to become something else.
Right.
We have to become what we said we always should have been.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We have to work from a greater historical and cultural context.
Right.
We have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't, as I said, I hate these ultimatums. I hate feeling like you have to do it.
Yeah.
I hate giving that. But look, if you're in the ocean, you got to swim or you're going to drown.
Mm-hmm.
That's not me.
Right. That's just what it is. Right.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. Right.
And this is where we are.
Right.
And I don't want us to drown.
Mm-hmm.
There is a beauty in us. There's a beauty in humanity.
Right.
In all of it, in all of its problems. Like art comes from adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And our physical limitations, our, philosophical shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the art is. And how you create in spite of those things.
Right.
How you create because of those things.
Right.
How you are able to be something
mm-hmm.
with everything that you are. All those broken down pieces,
mm-hmm.
with all those failures and all those closed loops on the inside. How do you persist?
Mm-hmm.
How do you continue? That is the story of humanity. We try so desperately to chain ourselves to things that are greater than us.
Right.
And we try to create those great things.
Correct.
But all we ever do is end up chaining ourselves to ourselves. I think I said that in the faith episode. There's mm-hmm. a reason why, a God is always recognizable. It always has a human face in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
You can always recognize it because it's just you.
Yeah.
It's just you.
Right.
And that's all you end up chaining yourself to is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a sense of self, then what are you chaining yourself to?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
So you need to do that. We need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't, and we continue down this path, then we are going to lose everything.
Yes.
And it might not happen today. But I guarantee it might not happen today. But you'll see it happening.
Yes.
You'll see it.
Yes.
You'll see it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll know it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean by like a personal revolution.
Mm-hmm.
That book really, I guess that book really took all the rah-rah out of me. We got to do it. We got to get out there. We got to we got to do it. I'm like, no, we got to do this.
Right. And, I've always, I've talked about that.
Yeah.
Just forever. Is that I always felt like it had to come to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we've had our Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
We've had our Martin. We've had our Malcolm. We've had those. We've had that.
It's benchmark.
Yes. And it didn't become the thing that we thought it would become.
We got something.
Yeah, of course.
But we didn't get everything.
And so we have been asking, now for seem like decades, when is, where is the next Harriet, the next Martin or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No. That's not.
You're looking back.
Yes, you're looking back.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how.
Yeah, that's not how you move forward.
That's not. No. Because those steps have been taken. So now we have to take different steps. We have to take different steps. We have to approach this differently. And much of the thought out here is that, we just didn't do the steps fully. We would have done it properly, whatever that means, that we would have actually gotten the thing that we wanted. Okay, so I've been asking, well, why hasn't that occurred then? If that's what you say. I say because I always feel like that there's something awry with it. That there's something else. That it has to be something different. but are you prepared? Are you prepared are you prepared to be wrong? Mm. And for me, when I approached, the homeschool with everything, I made it perfectly clear that I was more than prepared to be wrong. Mm-hmm. More than prepared. That's why I had no issue in approaching, so much of the things, that we did in our homeschool, because I was not afraid. I'm not afraid of anything. I want to be challenged. Mm-hmm. I need to be challenged. And when those things, present themselves, then you have to respond accordingly. So, yes. So the Dune series for you, I thoroughly enjoyed, the Dune series as well, because I felt like it actually answered everything that I would say our African philosophers have.
I would say philosophers in general.
Yeah, I know. But everybody. Yeah, just everybody. But
that's that book, those series of books.
It really answered the call. Yeah. It answered the bell. And, I didn't think that it would come in the form of a Frank Herbert. I've never heard of him. Mm-hmm. But when I read it, I was like, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what and I kept saying that. Like this is what I'm talking about right here. So I felt like I'm not alone. I just did not think that it would come from, from him. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who it would come from, but I didn't think it would come from him. So the Dune series for you, and and Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yep.
For Why me, you always say his name? I always because you're right, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Okay, and then for me it was Heliodorus's Anthiopica. Then the next one was Tinkering Towards Utopia by I think it's Larry Cuban and David Tyack, I think is the name. Tyack and Cuban, I know those are the last names. Yeah. And I was in my PhD program at the time when I read this. And I remember when I did my residency, I went to Florida and I met with, different professors. And what's crazy is that a lot of them wanted to know who I was because of how I don't know, had my discussions in class or whatever the case may be. People they were all waiting. They couldn't wait to meet me. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Met them all. And it was a great time. And it was a professor who recommended the book to me. And she told me, she said, now, Renee, when you read this book, don't drop out the program. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I read the book. And I immediately dropped out the program. I knew from that, okay, I always wanted to homeschool you all. Mm-hmm. Always, always, always. And I worked as a school instructor, worked as a literacy specialist, all of those things. But when I read this book, I'm like, this is it. I knew I was right. I have another confirmation here that the American school system, just schools, pull your people out. Pull your people out. I stopped immediately. Immediately, I'm this close. I completed my first knowledge area module, all kind of. I stopped immediately. Taking my children out, and I'm going to do this work. And that was the book that really catapulted me, to really homeschool, to really to teach from
so what exactly
the point of being open.
Yes. Well, what is Tinkering Towards Utopia about?
Oh, it's basically about the American public school system in the 19th and 20th century, basically. And it's a very small book. It's not anything, hellaciously thick or whatever the case may be. And it was the way that they talked about the kindergarten program. It's a fantastic book, but it opened my eyes to what it is that I needed to do. Because schools, they want to produce a particular type of person, a non-thinking person. They just want you to be able just to, tom your way through. And when I read that, and it's I can stop right here. And at the time when I was working, I was doing my studies, I was working with Frederick Douglass in education, and how he, pretty much he was an autodidact, how he educated himself in the things that he did. And now I was looking at that, and I was leaning towards homeschooling anyway. I mean, I was just, because it just felt like you're just better doing on your own. The problem solving thing had really become, a crux of a lot of my work. And then when I read this, we could drop this right here. Yes, I could take my son out of the best school, and yes, I could do this. As a man, I could do even better, because it's not about, giving you, the answer and telling you. It's about discovering and allowing that mind to just grow. And with Tinkering Towards Utopia, it sounds as if that's what y'all say that you want, but that's not really what you do. And so looking at, schools and trying to have a business model, and they just talk about basically the failures. Time and time again, whatever program that you all have ever tried, it's been a fail and a fail and a fail. And I'm like, oh my God, I can just stop right here. I can stop immediately. And it was immediate. Immediate. I'm like, And so, again, for me, it was more of a confirmation.
Yeah.
That I was sort of like on right back, but then, reading that, and I reckon, look, well, I know what it did for me. I don't know if it'll do it, for others. And I read them like, I don't see how you don't stop. Like when you read this book, like how you don't stop. Yeah, that's this. Yes, it does. And we're always trying to come up with all these charters and fake. That stuff is trash. Yeah. Basically, I don't know. That's what it is. And then at the time, like, I was working and going to different conferences and meeting people from Taiwan, meeting people from China, places like that, and Taiwan and China, like they have the best, their school system is the best and all that other crazy stuff. And come to find out, look, they have the exact same struggles that we have, particularly with reading at the third grade level, and how it is that they teach in this narrow focus,
dogmatic way.
Yes, and then. Well, what has happened? I mean, I don't have to tell you what has happened. Is that at every rip, your people are showing you something differently. And so you want to like hone in, break it. No. And so that book, really opened my eyes, and I that's I felt like I know I can do this. Even though
So Tinkering Towards Utopia quite literally changed.
Yes, like boom, exactly. Yeah, literally changed
your course.
Right. And the last book is Amos Wilson's, Blueprint for Black Power. Oh my God. When I, read that book, and at the time, Scott, think about the time in which I read the book. Like Heliodorus is when I was undergrad in college. Okay. Tinkering Towards Utopia, I was in graduate school for a PhD. Yeah. For a PhD. And Amos Wilson comes around. This had to be 2010, maybe 29, 10, maybe 11, like in that time frame. And so,
because I think we might have started homeschooling by then.
Did we? I'm not sure if I read it before we started homeschooling.
And during.
Maybe. I'm not sure, but I know I was still in New Orleans at the time when I read it. And it was what was going on, and the way that he laid out this blueprint, right? And the things that he talked about in Amos Wilson, he was so matter of fact in his approach, right? Because he talks about, like W.E.B. Du Bois, even Elijah Muhammad. He was so matter of fact, like he took all the fluff out, and it was more so that the blue, yes, it is what you do, right? But you have to have a different mindset to even do something like this.
It used to be a different mentality.
It has to be a different mentality. Yes, altogether. And that's what he honed on. I remember like when I read like the first 200-300 pages, I breezed through it because it's like, yes, it has to be a different mentality to approach, power. Because we think of, this power as this, I got my gun and I'm gonna force you to do what I want you to do, and I'm gonna kill you, whatever the case may be. That's not it. That's not it in this sense.
Well, that's how it's supposed to be.
Right. And so in reading Blueprint, right? Because he goes and he talks about, there's history involving those type of things. He mentions all of that in there. But the thing is that it's about answering your call. What is it that you need to do right now for you? And, trying to, right the wrongs of history. No. Not that that's not what you're supposed to be doing, but you need to be doing your work today. We can't hang.
It's not all you're supposed to be doing.
Right. We can't hang our success on the ancient Egyptians and think, well, there's nothing else to be done. We can't hang. Right. We can't hang, all of our, on ancient Ethiopia. No, we still have to do, because we're living today. And we still have to, we have to answer for what we need to do today because we are alive today. And so in reading that, I felt that it really catapulted me into to how the framing of a lot of things that we have done.
Yeah.
But it was more so Malafi Asante, but that did, but Amos Wilson definitely played a role.
So I guess for us too, it really was the books.
Yeah.
The books that really, informed our actions and stuff like that, or whatever. Because Emerson really wasn't the book; it was kind of
it was more of a collection of and like I said, there were other authors, but they just I can't think of them right now.
Other stuff that was redoing at the time. I think that was also when I read that Langston Hughes poem that we always end up arguing about. But it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. But I think all of this really boils down to, like I said, this isn't something that you're born with,
right?
Because I see a lot of, especially like today, during these times of coronavirus and protesting and just
Trump
civil unrest around the world,
right?
There's all these protests all over the place. I see, and I'm here being like, oh, you can't do that. I'm not saying that you can't, but it has to be something more. It has to be something else, stuff like that. And I'm sure that that for a lot of people, when I say things like that, it sounds like a cop out. It sounds like, oh, yeah, I'm saying it takes simpler, smaller, more gradual actions.
Right. Are you saying that we can't fight the white man?
Yeah.
Are you saying that?
More like, I have to do something. Right. I have to do something. I can't just sit on my hands, stuff like that, even though I've never said that.
Right.
But it sounds like I'm trying to take the air out of, saying that, that it doesn't sound realistic. It sounds like, frilly, let's just all get along type stuff. At least, every now and then. I mean, that's how I think of it, especially like for people in it, in the momentum, in that action. Like I have to do something, and it has to be something like this, and it has to be right now like this. You know, and I think I often you have you got to shift the perspective. That's all it takes, all this stuff like that. It sounds like a cop out. It sounds like it's not real. It's not really going to happen because it's not what we're used to doing. It's never how we've reacted to these situations to begin with.
Yeah, because I know that some listeners will say, so if somebody come up to you, smack you or whatever, what? Shift their perspective?
Yes, actually, yes. I mean
that too, but
I mean, I'm not. Look, I've never said not to hit people. I'm just saying that because I hate this particular conversation because it gets on my nerves so much. Because it boils down to everything. Such a simplistic lateral 2+2 thing. Right. What I'm saying is that perspective takes work, and that I'm not immune to these things. No, we aren't immune to these things. Like I said, I hated, and I felt that it needed to look a certain way, and that it had to be this, and that it has to come down this way, and it has to be a reckoning in a sense, and stuff like that. And that mentality hasn't changed. I feel like this world can't be this anymore, especially for us. Really, for everyone, but I'm Black, so especially for us.
Right.
And that but I know that if we continue to do things this way, we're going to lose a lot more than we think that we are. And we aren't going to get what we're looking for. All you're going to amount to is what you've lost, and that's why you're going to long for it so much. And but this particular perspective, idea, it fosters a very hands-off mentality because you know that it has to be something else. It has to be something else, and that means you have to do something else, which means you have to hold yourself in line, to this principle, to allow other people to hold themselves in line themselves. It can't be you. It can't take this form anymore. It can't be this way, and it's not something that you can just do.
Right.
Not having this particular perspective, and not, protesting and rioting as well. It's about being able to understand that creation in itself is an act of destruction. They both entail one another. To destroy means something has to go. Right? To create means something must take its place.
Right.
They both work towards the same end. And to do one means that you're doing the other. And when you continue down this way, you are going to destroy this, and you're also going to destroy you. The person you are in it. It's all going to go. And I don't think we have a real big understanding of that. That is all of it's going to go. And that if you want to come out of this with any type of semblance of self and understanding of people, and the sense of direction, then you have to get rid of it before it's taken from you. You have to do the work now before it's too late, before it's not there, and before there's no more work to be done. Until you get to those points, you have to do it. You have to do it now. You have to do it now, every day now.
Right.
And it's going to be a continuous now. I have to do it forever now.
Yes.
And these existential questions that we have come up against and run up against, it's not because we don't want things to change. It's definitely not because of that.
Right.
And it's not because we're trying to say that you're wrong. you know, you have a right to your anger. You have a right to want this to go away. You have a right to want to tear it down.
Correct.
You're not wrong for feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you're doing it this way,
mm-hmm.
that's all you're going to get. You're just going to tear it down.
Right.
And you're going to take, and it's going to take a lot of things with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever want to get to the part where you get to build something
mm-hmm.
again, where you get to be someone again, then it's not something that has to come after. It's the thing that has to come first.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to shift how you go about fighting your wars.
Mm-hmm.
How you go about, trying to create something, how you go about trying to change things.
How much of yourself are you willing to give up to change society, to change other people, just to change, period? Yeah. What is it that you're willing to give up?
Yeah, I always find it annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when black people, when we are confronted with things, every black parent in the world, is like, I would fight tooth and nail to protect my child from the police.
Right.
If it ever came down to that, I would do whatever I had to do to protect my child.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what that means. We know what you're trying. I would die for this. I would kill for this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're saying.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, and it gets on my nerves. Not because you're not supposed to feel that way, but because when I say that, well, maybe just quit your job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe try to do something else. Do something else. It's like, no, I got bills to pay. I got, mouths to feed. I got to do all this. And It's like, you're willing to die.
Right.
You're willing to die and to kill.
Right.
For something that's just going to amount to death and suffering.
Mm.
It takes more of you. Like, you're willing to do that.
That's right.
You're willing to do that. You're willing to die and to murder people, and instead of just like quitting your job and doing something,
right,
and walking away,
right?
Like, you'd rather do that than this. Really, it's because this is the harder way.
Mm-hmm.
This is the harder way.
Yeah.
It's easier to it's easier to do this because this is the way things have always been done.
Right.
For better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're trying to move on to something else, especially when that something else is something we're going to have to create, is not there.
Right.
We're going to have to all figure this out together.
Mm-hmm.
It's when it comes down to that, it's easier to just go with what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it is terrible, even if it's horrible, even if it hurts and it amounts to hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said in our culture episode, like we're struggling, with a gun in our face. We know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
We're comfortable with that because we understand the stakes.
Mm-hmm.
Doing this.
Yeah. Doing something else requires.
Doing something else is like, you don't know what's at stake.
That's right.
This is a whole different ball game, a whole different balance that's trying to be
how many times have I said that, right?
And so it's easier to suffer under what you know,
right,
than to try to be free in something that you don't.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, as long as that particular mentality, as long as that's out there, all you're ever going to get is suffering and more pain. And I'm just saying that this whole episode is about, this is something that we have had to realize for ourselves.
Right.
We didn't just inherit this. We had to realize it for ourselves. And that, everything that we're doing, is trying to get you to realize that for yourself. But you can only know it your way. I know it through doing. Right? That's how it all galvanized me. You know it through, Blueprint for Black Power, and Tinkering Towards Utopia. That's how you know it. I don't know how, the listener those hearing us out
Mm-hmm.
are going to be able to understand, are going to get to this if you ever will.
Right.
If you agree with
because
this.
there might, because folks will hear this and may completely reject what we're talking about. But I expect rejection because it's something that's new.
Yeah.
And so if it's new, I expect you to reject it first. But if you just hear us out,
all I'm saying, all we're saying
and
is
what
that
we're saying, right?
It's not about not wanting revolution, not about not wanting change, but it's about understanding that we have to, if we really want to be free, it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take us not knowing what the stakes are. It's going to take something else. It's going to take something else.
Right. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of us have invested in what we're doing because we know the stakes. Mm-hmm. We know the stakes in going the route that I guess we've always been going. Mm-hmm. We know what that entails. Going a different route, requiring of you to create something outside of this. You don't know. Okay? The responsibility is all on you. In any case, in the case of doing something new, in the case of doing what you're doing now, the responsibility still falls on you. And when you're responsible for it, whatever the outcome is. But now, when you're with the shifted perspective and doing something else, all of it is on you. Mm-hmm. There is no one else to blame. Yeah. There is no boogeyman, no monster, no conspiracy theories. There's none of that. It's you and your work. Yeah. Or lack thereof. Mm-hmm. Because as long as we're in this cesspool, we know what this is. And we're operating in it, and here we are. But to come out of that, to do something else, it requires much more of you. And all of the responsibilities, all of the pluses and minuses, whatever you want to call it, it falls directly on you. There is no one else. And so that is, I guess that's scary for some folks.
Yeah, so in conclusion, the big takeaway from this is that we have had to learn this, and we are still learning.
Yes.
If you feel like, it's too hard, or, that you're just supposed to get it, you're just supposed to, understand it, see it totally, then no, that's not what this is supposed to be. Right. We didn't just get it. We had to learn it. Right. Things have had to shift for us. Mm-hmm. We've had to go through the existential dread and thoughts of depression, saying like, what in the world is going on? We've had to go through that. Right. We didn't inherit this. We had to work for it ourselves, and we're working for it. Mm-hmm. Working because we don't know. Mm-hmm. That's the entire point of this. Yeah. Is looking at all the things that we have and be like, it's not it. Well, what is it supposed to be? I don't know, but it's not this. Right. We need to figure that out for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so if you're feeling like that, if you're feeling as if you aren't getting it, or if that is not working for you, then that's how you're supposed to feel. Correct. That's how you're supposed to feel. A lot of people, we see failure as a bad thing. But you can only learn if you admit your ignorance. Yeah. How many times have I said that? That's the problem with us, is that so many times, if we would just admit to our errors. And that's the thing. We are all ignorant in this. Mm-hmm. We are all failing, and that's not a problem. Right. The problem is when you refuse to recognize it. That's right. You refuse to do something about it, to rectify it. Right. So that's what this whole episode has been about. Telling you that we have failed. Mm-hmm. And if it weren't for these books, if it wasn't for the homeschooling, if it wasn't for those shifting perspectives that happened for us, then we would still be failing. Mm-hmm. And even right now, doing this, I'm sure, we'll look back and think on the things that we should have done, even in this, the things that we should have said, even in this. But the work is never done. Right. It's not supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So if you're feeling in any of this, with the world, with everything, if you're feeling like, I don't get it, it's too much stuff, that's what you're supposed to do. Huh. That's how you're supposed to be feeling. Now the question is, how are you going to act on that? Are you going to rest on your laurels and just be dissatisfied and think that that's just the way it's supposed to be? Or are you going to find that thing that challenges you to be something else? You know, we're trying to be that thing.
Right.
We're trying to challenge you and trying to challenge us, you know, to be something else.
To be the people who we say we should have always been.
Who should have always been.
Right.
Yes. So, yeah. And we've been thinking about maybe like reading a book, going back to a book.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. We're
still not sure. We're still working out. Yeah.
But this was kind of an introduction to perhaps that idea, maybe reading one of these books that we talked about. You know, actually going over it on this. But if you have any comments, questions, anything, you know, if you have any recommendations on any books that you would like for us to read,
right.
You know, it doesn't have to be something we've actually read before, just anything.
Right.
You know, please feel free to leave something in the comments, say so, whatever. And thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you.